Hello, my name is Riley Renner, and this is a little bit about me and how communication has kind of shaped the person before you today. A little bit about me: I grew up in Arizona for the most part. Some of the experiences and changes in my life that really helped shape my communication and shape me as who I am as a person would be the biggest one would be moving across the country to actually Florida just as I was beginning high school, just graduated eighth grade. My dad got a job across the country, and so all of a sudden, my life was swept up under the rug. It was real quick. We had like a week notice, and I was enrolled in a high school all the way across the country, 3,000 miles away. It was a big adjustment. It was a big change, and I really had to be able to adapt to my surroundings. That really relates to one of the concepts we've learned in communication competence. We have effectiveness, appropriateness, and ethics, and these things actually kind of played a part into my move into Florida. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any new friends. I grew up in a Christian home. My father was a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor, and a lot of my family really had a big impact in the ministry role. So I was thrown into this new environment with new friends I had to make. I didn't know their backgrounds. I didn't know their ethics. I didn't know their morals, their standards, what they stood for. So I had to figure out who I was going to become as a person, kind of on my own, in this new random place that was really unknown to me. I'm thankful that before that move, that in chapter 4 in the textbook, it really talks about culture and what your culture is, and the culture around you, and the people around you. And my family's culture was growing up in church. So my dad being a pastor, he planted a church a year before I was born, got it up to running about 5,000 people when we decided to take a job as a new lead pastor in Florida. And my whole life was centered around going to church, being around church, and having other people watch me, have other people paying attention to me. You're a pastor's son. You have to hold yourself to a different standard. And I was kind of forced into, not forced, but I was really this trial by fire in a way on being a communicator because my dad was such a good communicator, and my grandfather and so many other people were pastors who spoke to people on weekends, thousands of people every weekend. I had to figure out for myself how to be a communicator. Growing up around church, you're the pastor's son. People want to talk to you. You have to know what's appropriate. You have to know what's right. You have to be able to talk back to people. And another thing that was mentioned in the textbook is listening, and how to be a good listener, how to be an appropriate and strong listener, how to interpret the words that are coming in, and show that you're listening, and how it works both ways in communication, that the listener is just as important as the communicator in getting the point across. And there were so many times I had to talk to families and talk to people that I didn't necessarily want to talk to, but I didn't have that choice, and I had to listen to them and talk to them. And in a way, I helped myself become a better communicator in that way. Um, I'm a responsible person, I believe, and the way I became a responsible person was at a young age, was getting a job. The second I was able to get my own job, I was 15 years old. I might have not even been 15, I might have been 14. I was working at a coffee shop. I was opening by myself at 4 a.m. every single weekend after football games. Friday night, I'd have a football game, come home, go to bed 10 o'clock, wake up 4:30. I had to go and open the coffee shop by myself. 14-year-old, 15-year-old, I did that for 3 years. And since then, I've always had a job, and I've always been responsible. I've always bought my own cars, paid my own bills, had to figure things out on my own. And I believe that communication has really helped me be successful in having a job. And it's usually been in some type of leadership position when I am working. And being a communicator is so very important to shape the person you are. Um, I believe that self-esteem is very important. Your communication and your self-esteem is your social clique that you hang out with is a direct impact in and reflection on who you are as a person. I I was a 4.0 student, wanted to be a doctor, striving to be a doctor. I also was a student athlete. So my best friends were the football team. My girlfriend was a cheerleader. Um, but I had no problem communicating with anybody in any setting. If I'm being honest, I'm pretty introverted, and I choose not to speak in public and speak in front of people. But when I'm forced to and thrown into that role, I kind of embrace it. I have to be able to adapt and be able to figure out my situation and just kind of go with the flow. Um, I don't know if I really have a comparison. I don't know if I compare myself to any person or certain group. I believe I'm my own person. I feel comfortable going hanging out with the nerds as much as the athletes because I believe that I am a little bit of both in that. And I think that just the most important thing in developing me as a person and in developing my communication was just being able to do things for myself and figure things out for myself, to be independent, to be responsible. And I believe that those decisions that I had to suffer the consequences or rewards have made me into the person that I am today.